So we are here to impart our wisdom about fundraising, specifically fundraising for the Clarion West Write-a-thon. A lot of people don't really know where to start when it comes to fundraising. They want to help, but they're not sure who to ask, how to ask, etc. So we're here to talk about that and help out. If you would not mind introducing yourselves, that would be great. Let's go alphabetically. So, Alex.
Oh, hi, I'm Alex Morrissey. I live in Asheville, North Carolina, and I write speculative fiction, mostly science fiction and fantasy.
Hi, I'm Curtis Chen. I am a graduate of Clarion West, 2014. I also write mostly science fiction and fantasy, including the kangaroo novels.
I'm Julie McGalliard. I live in Seattle. I'm a graduate of Clarion West 2006. I write a little bit of everything, but for the last few years, I've been mostly focusing on horror and dark fantasy, and I write a series of Tales of the Rougarou, a series of books about Cajun werewolves.
I am Evan J. Peterson. I am the coordinator of development and outreach for Clarion West. I'm also a graduate of the 2015 class. And if you want to know more about what I do, you can just look me up. I would like to start with why fundraise at all? Because everyone's welcome in the Write-a-thon, whether they are fundraising or not. But we do encourage people to fundraise. It helps us very, very much in our yearly budget and hiring instructors and putting on events, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, I think that what Clarion West does is important, actually. I believe in it. And so I want to help support it any way I can. And when I started Clarion West, or when I actually went, I was the beneficiary of one of the scholarships, so I was subsidized, which really came in handy at the time because I'd been going through kind of a bad patch in terms of my career, both writing wise and day job. and I really needed it at the time. But at the moment, my fiction career could be better, but my day job is great. So that's one of those things that I try to encourage. I try to donate as well as encourage people to donate to me.
For me, it's important for me to try to be engaged as much as possible with any organization that I'm, involved with. And I loved when I read up about Clarion West, I was really excited about the mission and the people who were involved. So you sort of leverage my own sense of competition within myself to try to do the most I could for the organization while I was involved with the Write-a-thon. So that way it afforded me accountability, which was kind of important to say, okay, listen, here are these sort of like these numbers, rather arbitrary and maybe ambitious numbers, but I'm going to try to hit these numbers to encourage people.
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything that Julie and Alex have said. Like Julie's saying, I really believe in the work that Clarion West does, not just during the 6-week workshop, but throughout the year now with all the other online things. And like Alex was saying, for me, the Write-a-thon is a really easy, structured way for me to, help with the fundraising.
Yes, and we do try to provide advice, templates, tips and tricks, etc. We have things you can post directly to your social media and pre-written stuff. Next question. how can people get over their fear of asking people to donate?
I would say that, one, like I was saying, it's really easy to get set up with the write-a-thon. And, honestly, it's really easy to start with a very small ask, right? Like most people that I see doing the write-a-thon, they're not asking for, thousands of dollars right off the bat. It's just like, hey, anything you can give, and honestly, when I've done it and people have donated, like, $5 or $10, even sometimes less than that. It's just nice to see the support, and I feel like that for me is sometimes even more important than the amount of money I'm bringing. It's just the number of people, different people who are supporting me.
I've always found that the community nature of Clarion West provides kind of a comfort zone for that sort of thing. And so it's really common if you've been through the program, you might get together with the people from the graduates from your year and say, okay, we're going to donate to each other. And, maybe your other writing group, it's like, oh, let's donate to Clarion West. And there's usually a group of people who, whether they're writers themselves or not, who are very supportive of your writing. And that's how I always that's sort of the core, I think, of who I would ask. And so I have, family and friends who almost always donate if they know it's happening. There's people who are a little bit more hit and miss. And I find that, to me anyway, what creates a comfort zone is kind of being able to say, hey, the write-a-thon is happening, and just sort of low pressure, like make it more of a, information item.
Mhm.
And that said, you do want to be careful how you communicate. I have one of the people who donated quite often to me, I found out eventually, like, because we had some confusing conversations about it, and I found out that he actually thought that I was asking for donations for attending the workshop. He kind of didn't get the write-a-thon aspect of it. So anyway, we cleared it up, but that's just kind of something to look out for.
Yeah, I had a similar experience with the person who thought they were donating to me. They were like, oh, sure, I'll support you in some fashion, not really reading the, I wouldn't even say the fine print, just the actual body of the text. But as far as the fear element, I'm really bold in most of my sort of efforts with things that I do, but I frame it more in the terms of, this isn't really me specifically asking. I'm sort of a conduit, for where the organization to the people. And what I've found is that people really love you a lot more than you think they do. So like there's usually a larger network of people who really support our efforts. So they're like, I love that you're doing this. I love that you're striving for this, and whatever the things that you may do. So when you reach out and say, hey, everybody, this is what I'm doing for this really great thing, I'd love your support. Typically people kind of respond, positively to that.
Yes, be enthusiastic about the organization. Focus on what you love about the organization and the cause that you are raising money for. That brings us to, who should you ask?
Everybody. Slipping into the everybody factor, like, we're all writers, and our job is to communicate with people, with our audience, and so we should have a mailing list. That's kind of basic. Like, those are the people that you could have this body of people to speak out to, along with friends, family, coworkers, whomever.
For me personally, it's always sort of been easier to to tell other writers about the write-a-thon, both on the sort of like on the giving side, but also like, oh, this is a thing that you can also do yourself. And even if you're not going to fundraise for it, it can be a really great motivator because you feel like you're part of this whole community, and it's sort of getting you to, you know, keep working on whatever project you declare that you're going to do for these weeks. So I think, you know, other writers will definitely, you know, understand, you know, what a writing workshop is and why it's important, and, you know, why the fundraising is important and what they're going to get out of it. So yeah, and to your point, you know, even if people aren't sort of more established, they don't have like their own, you know, fan base with a mailing list and all that, they're probably in, you know, a writers group, or they have other people that they talk to about just, you know, as they're working on their craft. And that is always a great place to start, because you never know who, you know, like Alex was saying, you never know who is going to, you know, hear about it and, you know, have something to say to you, like, oh, you should actually, you know, also ask this other person, or I can send it to you know, my aunt who, you know, has collected analog magazines since the 50s, or like, you never know.
Exactly. It's you know, it's a strategy to approach individual people one at a time. It's also a strategy to just blast out into the atmosphere. Hey, I'm doing this thing. Who wants to help?
I'm totally hitting up my writers group this time.
Whenever I ask for, you know, whenever I put out that it's happening, I always suggest donations in multiples of 13. I don't know why I started doing that, but it, you know, it's like extremely lucky. But it always, it seems to work to encourage people, like, because I think that people sometimes get stymied by, you know, they look at it and think, well, what's a good amount? You know, because it's not like a walk-a-thon where you literally are paying like, you know, 25 cents a mile or whatever it is. So something like that, where it's like, you know, may I suggest, and so even if people, you know, make it very clear that you're not, it's not a demand or anything, but I do think it helps to give people a suggested donation.
That's an awesome strategy. It you know, makes me think of Sally Struthers when she would say, for just 17 cents a day. And it's because that works. You know, people want to know how much to give. And yeah, if you tell them, oh, $13 or $130, you know, or anything in between, etc. Yeah, it's always great to give people a suggested amount. And that, I mean, we can just segue right into what's effective. What are some other strategies for getting people to donate and continue donating?
Personalize your journey in this one. I found that to be a pretty big one. My first effort with the Write-a-thon 2 years ago was following the passing of my mother, who had been a real big supporter of books and story for me growing up. And she didn't have the opportunity to really know anything about my writing because of dementia robbed her of that opportunity. So she passed away, and I had to bow out from, I guess in 2020 of the Write-a-thon. So that made it, you know, something I couldn't participate in. So when the 2021 came around, that's when I kind of dove all in her name. So that was kind of the part of the journey. So personalizing it was big.
One thing that I have done, if I'm really on the ball, is I write a weekly essay about what I learned in Clarion West, or why I think Clarion West is cool, or something like that. And so what that does is it creates sort of an automatic framework. Like when I publicize the essay, I'm also publicizing the Write-a-thon itself. And I find that a lot of people, you know, a very basic marketing strategy is that people are very busy and there's a lot going on in their lives. And a lot of times, even people who really do want to support you, it'll just scroll right out of their head, right? So you have to remind people more than once. And it can seem like you're nagging, but if you're providing content, if you're like, here's this week's essay, blah, blah, blah,
Right.
then you're like giving that little reward for your pitch. So I found that to be very effective.
Alex, you do that too, right? I recall
Yeah.
that you would send out samples of what you were writing.
Yep. So yeah, every week was a weekly, I use it as an opportunity to actually build my newsletter properly. And then I've migrated through different newsletter opportunities, but it was a great opportunity to kind of do that weekly status update of what's happening, what's going on, keeping people abreast of stuff, sharing, things that I had written. So that were like chapters. Hey, here's some read at your own peril because they're not edited, but good luck. That kind of stuff.
That's a great place to start, is sort of personalizing it. And like in past years, what I've done something similar where every week I'll just send an update on like how I did this week. And it doesn't have to be a big thing, but it helps keep people in the loop. So I always like, thank you for donating, this is what happened this week. And honestly, it's also kind of therapeutic for myself to kind of like have that sort of pause and like, okay, let me look at what I did next week and then think about what I'm gonna work on for the next week, the coming week. And I think there are sort of limited opportunities a lot of times for readers to get insight into the writing process in that way, and even for other writers to find out how does someone else do it, and is there something you can learn from that, or just just to be interested in someone else's process. So
because we all do it a little differently. It's not one size fits all. Let's talk more about giveaways. Do you offer prizes or just, like gift with purchase for those who donate to your particular writer page on Write-a-thon?
I mean, I have offered different things in the past. I don't feel like I have a huge audience for things like I know some sort of bigger name authors have offered things like Tuckerizations, where like they'll put your name into whatever story they're working on, or they'll offer like a critique of a short story, or like your novel query if you're doing that. So those are all options. But again, like different people are going to have different things they're comfortable with. Some people have bookmarks or postcards or whatever. Like if you happen to have that stuff already set up, I think that's that's an easy thing to do. Sort of like I was saying, just offering that sort of insight into what you're doing. The people who are supporting you, I think, will appreciate that, even if it wasn't something they specifically asked for.
Other than the essays, I'm very bad at it. I'll think like, oh, I should send out this, and it always ends up being something like I always get it out late, and it's so I feel like I'm not sure how well it works for people who are more on the ball than I am, but I've never felt like the giveaway, like say, donating, get this, I've never felt like that works very well for me. And it's probably just because I suck at it, but it's good to know if you suck at something and not.
Yes. But what you don't suck at is fundraising, which is why I asked you if you would participate in this recording, right? So yeah, I think it's important for people to hear that even if you consider yourself disorganized, etc., there are still ways that you can make this a very effective fundraising endeavor.
Yeah.
Alex, go for it.
Yeah. So like I said, I'm a bit ambitious, and you guys have put up with me for a couple of years, so I appreciate it. Yeah. So I sort of frame it like a Kickstarter, and I look at it on two sort of levels. I'm trying to maximize the total amount of money I can get people to donate, but I'm also trying to maximize individual donations. So in the terms of like a group donation, I have it sort of stretched into like $0 to $100 of fundraising, $250 and up, $500 and up, $1,000 and up, and $5,000 and up. Now, I don't get near $5,000, but maybe, hopefully, one day. But the point being is I will give, hey, you can read PDFs of certain amount of chapters. I try to do a chapter a day for the Write-a-thon, and that gives people something to to look at. And then I'll add more chapters if people do more. And then since I have other skill sets, I will apply those in the terms. So I will do character sketches. After, what was it, $500, I'll do that. And then after $1,000, I'll do a color illustration of a character, just trying to sort of encourage the audience to kind of push their efforts. And then on an individual level, I'll send them a PDF if they do $50 or more. If it's $100 or more, I'll send them a high-res image of, a character sketch, and, et cetera and so forth. And I just kind of build on that. And then it's just that constant messaging of just, support me, support not just me, but this whole effort. And people typically reply.
Oh, I just wanted to add on to I think the analogy to crowdfunding is a great one, because I know that like Kickstarter will actually recommend, like when you set up your campaign, that you set up the lowest tier where people can like just give $1 and they don't expect any reward from that. They're just like giving $1 or whatever amount they set just to support you doing that project. And so I think, for the Write-a-thon specifically, sometimes it can feel like a lot of added pressure for someone to say, oh, I'm not just like working on the project, but I also have to offer like these rewards as people won't donate. And I just want to, tell anyone who might be worried about that you don't need to put that extra pressure. So
no,
if you
do
don't
not do this.
Yeah, if you don't have an idea for like, oh, this would be a cool reward. And I think the writing adjacent stuff is great, like art, if you do visual art or music or like something else, that's really cool, because that's something that again is going to be unique to you. But I think it comes back to figuring out who the people are who want to support you and to support Clarion West as an organization, and giving them the opportunity to do that, and giving them something. Like, you don't have to give them, it's not necessarily like they're not buying a thing from you, like in this particular case, it's just, it is nice if they get, a bonus thing from you. It is nice if they get insight into your process. It's just nice for them to feel like they are also a part of this community, even if they are not creators themselves, or if they don't have the time to do some of this stuff. It's, yeah, it's just a way to sort of welcome more people in and to let them know what is happening.
I think knowing how to bug people enough times without becoming tedious.
Being sort of intentional about it is super important, because if you're like, hey, I'm going to go in this and I'm going to write, 2,000 words a day, and that's what I'm going to do for the, the remainder of the time. Like, if you hit those marks, people are on board. Or if it's like, hey, I just want to complete this short story or finish this short story, whatever it is, it's cool. But just be clear on what you want to do and communicate that to the people who, if you are fundraising, asking for them to support your efforts.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I was going to say, even if someone is sort of very new to the fundraising thing, or even new to writing, and they don't have any idea what it is they're really trying to make a career out of, right? Specifically, like what genre or what kind of story they're gonna end up telling for most of their professional lives. I think it's for the specific thing we're talking about, it's easy to figure out like what you feel comfortable with, and just you don't have to go beyond that. It's not, some people enjoy sort of the the leaderboard aspect of it, but it's not necessarily competitive. It's this community, and we're all trying to help each other.
can we do a quick round of what each of you, either what you're working on this summer or what your goals are for this year's Write-a-thon?
I'm going to say I have decided to work on a first draft of book 6 of the Werewolf series. I'm currently in edits on book 5, and book 5 is kind of a beast, and I think I want to go into a different book just to escape the pressure. So I'm going to so I'm probably going to actually be posting word counts and stuff like that as my gimmick for this year.
I think I'm going to actually try starting some new short fiction projects. I don't know if I'm going to do one a week. I may be too old for that now, but I've been working on like novel projects for the last several years. Now there are other kinds of different things, and I keep having ideas that I think would be interesting short stories, and I just haven't made the time to really focus on that. So I think I'm gonna do my best to do that this summer.
Alex?
I'm going to be doing first draft work on the second book in my science fiction fantasy trilogy. So I've got the outline. I'm just, making that as clear as possible. And then I will just be mashing the keyboard with abandon.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being part of this.